Hi, welcome to this week's Pillar Guidance with the Our Raw Material Arena. I am Tavish Cardiff. Don't turn away now. You can start with any pillar in this practice. Every single one of them is equally valid and important. The halfway mark, though, measures values and ideals, so that's what I'm going to talk about today. And in this session, we're talking a little more from my own experience with the pillars, so you're going to hear a little bit about what I've learned, which is taking stock of what's important to you in relationship to how you're actually spending your time, in relationship to what the most ideal image you have for those things is within you. So as you can see, those things cover a lot of space and a lot of ground, and each one of us has a different approach to all of those things. So from day to day, how often are you doing things that dovetail with that system, that keep you lined up with hitting the mark creatively, your own passion, and just feeling joyful as you go through your days? That doesn't mean that those scales won't dip back and forth, that you won't get disrupted regularly. And I think one of the major disruptions comes from working from an ideal space rather than a value space. And I struggle a lot of times with clients to identify the two for them and to start seeing what we see as ideal might be a thing that we think is a value when actually we're, holding a more ideal expectation around it. So let's break that down for a second. A value is, in these terms, how we spend our time, what we actually spend our time doing. So if we're looking at what we value over the last 2 months, how have we really spent our time over the last 2 months? That doesn't mean that those are the things that are important to us. It just means that's what we've been doing. The part that I struggle with is wanting something that you don't have and not understanding how easy it is to get it when we simply make a shift in our values, and especially in our ideals, or take things to what I call the ideal playground so that we can imagine the actual best for them and start envisioning the thing that we want rather than continuing to tell ourselves how we don't have it. What I can tell you is if I am not operating with a values list, I am probably going to mess some stuff up. And I'm probably going to do that anyway because I'm just me. And I think humans mess things up occasionally. It becomes training to focus on the things that we want to be focused on, which is what the Our Raw Material is really all about. Ideally, it helps each of us become such a good representative of ourselves that we don't have to spend time in fear, in worry, in blaming other people, in feeling like a victim, because we are easily able to move through the things that happen to us, even if they're terrible, with the idea that they are part of our wholeness and that they are necessary to just the integrity of who we are as a human being. It is our own value system that has convinced us that somehow happiness or being in an extended or permanent state of everything being really good around us is somehow achievable. When we live in the reality that our energy, our biorhythms are going to obviously dip just like waves in the ocean. They're going to move back and forth all around us. Our values are something that can change every single day. We can have a new list to work from depending on what is important for that day. So the things that we need to get done are obviously high on the list. But every day something might come along that forces us into consideration or a question of which ones to do, because obviously there is absolutely no way to do every single thing that we want to do. Everything that we value can't be attended to all at once. All of the things that we care for can't be cared for all at once other than with our open heart. So that is where we're really trying to work from, is the idea that we're on a vibrational level with the things that we want and in accordance with how we want to feel and how we want other people to feel. So the things that actually happen, those will move back and forth. Our feelings will move back and forth. Our allowance and acceptance, our ability to be aware of how everything works together and seems to connect and have a point and have reason, that is a space where our creative curiosity comes alive and we become active participants in what goes on with our life. That comes with identifying what is actually important to us. Not what we think it is, not what we've been told it is, not how we actually spend our time necessarily, unless you feel really good about every single thing that you do. And if you do, I mean, knuckles. That is about as cool as it gets. Most of us don't live like that every day. I find myself with our raw material practice more and more often feeling like I'm living in a space of joy, even though things happen all around me that aren't necessarily joyful. Which brings me to the challenge for this week: write a values list. If you don't want to write a list about what's important to you, write a list about how you've spent your time over the last 2 weeks or the last week or the last 2 months, whatever period of time makes sense to you. Write down how you spent your time and just check it against how you've wanted to be spending your time. Give yourself the space to see whether what you're doing lines up with what you want. If it doesn't, tune in next week where we're going to talk about conflict and you can start to detangle what stands in the way. I'll see you next week.